Few were surprised in 1992 when Monica returned to defend her U.S. Open title, this time against the young Spaniard, Arantxa Sanchez Vicario.
Monica Seles' game, I think, was perfect for the U.S. Open fast, hard courts. She took your time, even on a slow court. Monica Seles took your time away like no other player of her era. Took the time away on both sides. I mean, a lot of times you could play players like Graf, who hit the ball hard off the forehand side, but you could buy some time on the backhand. But Seles, forehand, backhand, even her first serve developed a lot of pace. She just was relentless to play. You felt like you just couldn't have a second to think.
1992, you met Arantxa in the final, and you actually had to wait, what, 5 hours? Because Chang and Edberg were going on in their classic match.
That was one of the hardest things about the US Open in the old days, that the women's finals were in the middle of the men's semifinals. And you had the Super Saturday where you're just waiting between the men's match to go on and play your finals, and that is so nerve-wracking because you're just nervous about playing the finals, let alone worrying about, should I eat right now, should I not eat, should I warm up, or I already warmed up 2-3 times. And then during the other stuff that about the Open, it's by the far the noisiest. I mean, at Wimbledon, you can hear the pin drop. At the US Open, I mean, you can't hear a thing. You have a hard time hearing the ball, especially those days. The planes were flying over our heads.
So when you did finally get out on the court against Arantxa, what do you remember about the match?
I remember, I think the crowd was pretty even, which was a nice change from my match against Martina the previous year. And just being the defending champion, you just have so much more confidence walking out there on the court.
I think everyone knew right away that Seles was going to join a really elite list of great young champions. When you start winning majors when you're still in your teens, when you're just relentless with your attack, and you know, Monica had just matured so quickly.
It was really wonderful to see the emergence of Monica Seles and how it's very, very difficult, as you know, to achieve a title and then defend it.
By the early spring of 1993, Monica and Steffi Graf had established a formidable rivalry. The two had met in 4 slam finals, with Monica winning 3 of them. But these two greats would be unwitting players in one of the most tragic events in sports history. On April 30th in Hamburg, Germany, Gunther Parsch, a crazed Steffi Graf fan, would stab 19-year-old Monica in the back as she sat on the court between games. The horror of that act is forever etched in the memory of fans. For Monica, the physical injuries would heal in a matter of weeks, but the emotional wounds were much deeper. For 2 years, the woman who had built her game to have no weakness couldn't see herself on a tennis court.
I mean, I really didn't know if I would play myself ever again. I mean, to me, at the end, just my love for the game won out. But emotionally, it was a big issue because as a little girl, when I picked up the tennis racket at age 6, I picked it up because I loved to play. And suddenly, first time in my life, I felt that void. I wasn't doing what I really wanted to do for different reasons. So I said, you know what, just do what you want to do.
In 1995, tennis fans witnessed a comeback like no other in sports. Her first Grand Slam appearance would be at the US Open, where she would not drop a set on her way to the final. Then the drama turned almost Shakespearean in nature when you realize her opponent in that final would be none other than Steffi Graf. 1995, I think your run to the final was one of the most magical stretches in my 20 years at the US Open. Tell me the things that stand out for you about those 2 weeks.
To me, it was just the biggest difference was that I had the crowd on my side, and really till the day that I got stabbed, maybe my last 3 months before my stabbing, I never experienced that because I was this player who lost 1 or 2 matches a year, and as normal, fans will always root for the underdogs. So I suddenly got to experience having the crowd on my side. And I mean, just before the tournament even started, if I would go into a restaurant in New York, people would just stand up and cheer for me. I was like, oh my gosh, wow.
Well, 1995, I think everybody anticipated the return of Monica Seles. Canadian Open that year, she was sensational, had a great splash of her comeback, and then marching through to the finals. Her first major back after the long absence after the stabbing.
I also felt so much pressure because of that, because like, I better not let all these people down. I mean, they're really behind me, rooting for me. And just walking out on the center court with that type of a support, I don't think I ever experienced it before and since what I experienced in 1995.
And the tension of playing Steffi Graf in that final was amazing because of everything that had happened beyond the control of those two great champions, but because of that horrible incident in Germany, it kind of brought that match to not just to the tennis forefront, but I think probably all sports fans and people just curious about life watch that match.
I think Stephanie and I always played every single match was unbelievable because we both were such fighters and we both didn't give an inch. And this was no different. We played our hearts out. I think it was 7-6 in the first set, then 6-love, and then I think it was 6-3. So it was a very seesaw match going back and forth. And then when Steffi won that last point, I was like, oh my gosh, this is over. Sadly, I didn't win it, but at least the pressure and the whole thing that I felt building up was over, and now it's time to, you know, relax a little bit.
When you shook hands at the net, it was very friendly. You know, sometimes there's tension, you're exhausted, you played a tough, but there was a warmth between you two that I thought was remarkable.
Well, I think both of us realized the magnitude of the match. I mean, you know, our careers after the stabbing went totally different ways. Steffi ended up winning I don't know how many Grand Slams. I ended up taking time away from the tennis. So it was one extreme to the other. And I think both of us realized, you know, the magnitude of that match. And how many people would be looking at us and everything that, you know, came with it, because it's really bigger than tennis.
Well, there was a dynamite match because I think we felt at that time that Seles was really back to the old Seles. It was kind of a blip because she wasn't quite the same player she had been before the stabbing. But she came very close to beating Steffi in that 3 sets, perhaps within a fraction of an inch on a ball she thought was an ace in a tiebreaker. It was called a fall. It was a great match because people were so glad, and I think one of those people was Steffi, that Monica was back in business.
Monica, welcome back.
There was really a lot of sentiment for Monica in that match. There was a lot of there was a lot of people thinking, well, you know, it would only be fitting for Monica to win this comeback match and get back on track where she was, because she was a dominant player when she left the tour. You know, unfortunately, the script doesn't always work out the way people want or the way that they perceive as just.
How many Grand Slams could she have won? How many records could she have broken? The full impact Monica Seles could have made on the game of tennis will never be known. But in the end, her legacy would not be found in the echoes of Hamburg. It would be found here, on the biggest stage in tennis. For even though the scoreboard said Monica had lost the 1995 U.S. Open final, in truth, she could claim a much greater victory. Monica had rebuilt her game and her psyche and returned from adversity of which the depths were unimaginable. It was a story and a moment to be found only at the Open.